Why is cabbage such a big part of Oktoberfest? Well, 1, delicious, and 2, cabbage. Cabbage is a late season storage crop. It'll keep in your fridge for weeks or pickle it. That's what we're doing today, and we're going to talk food preservation safety with my expert guest. Hello, Vermont. Okay, yesterday, Oktoberfest beer. Today, bring on the kraut. Making your own sauerkraut is easy. Just 2 ingredients, cabbage and salt. Okay, well, I guess 2 ingredients and several million microbes. And anytime you're dealing with food and microbes, you want to be safe. My guests today know all about that, or are learning all about that. Todd Pritchard, or Dr. Todd, as his students know him, is a senior lecturer in the Nutrition and Food Sciences Department at UVM, whose course, World of Fermented Foods, brings together the art and science of fermentation. He's also the advisor to the brand new Fermentation Club, co-founded by Ambiana Glavin, a sophomore majoring in nutrition and food sciences. Dr. Todd and Ambiana, welcome.
Welcome.
It's nice to have both of you here.
Thanks for having us.
Yay, and I feel like there's a third guest. We have this giant vat of sauerkraut, which is something we're going to talk about, and hopefully even get a chance to taste a little bit of later. Looking forward to that. But first, Ambiana. Okay, so I want you to tell us a little bit about how you fell in love with fermentation.
Yeah, so I was lucky enough to grow up like drinking a ton of kombucha and eating a lot of sauerkraut. And in high school, I was just drinking so much kombucha, and I've always been a bit of a curious person. And I was like, what if I made my own? And I did a little research, and to make kombucha, you need a scoby, which is a symbiotic culture of bacteria and yeast, to ferment it. And it turns out to get scoby, you need to get it from someone else in your community. And so I started asking around, just like to neighbors, and I thought this was like the coolest thing that someone had to pass on the scoby to
Yeah, it was like a little neighborhood connection.
Yes.
Go find the scoby.
Exactly, and I ended up getting it from like this older woman in my community, and she gave me scoby, and then it was super easy, and I just had to make I had to make black tea, and then put the scoby in, and then I had kombucha, like a lifelong supply, and I was like, wow, this is such a cool way to connect with your community and to connect with people. And so when I came to UVM, I was like, this is easy. I'll just bring my scoby with me.
I love that. So some people think about like bringing, I mean, maybe, well, we know people bring their horses to college, believe it or not, you know, pets, etc. You brought a scoby.
Yeah.
Very, very cute. And so when we made sauerkraut together last week, this giant vat of sauerkraut, the Fermentation Club was getting ready to host a pickling party in the dorms that night. So was that your vision, you know, community, dorm life, was that your vision for the Fermentation Club?
Yeah, I think it all started with the scoby and the kombucha, obviously, but that really just got me thinking about how food can really just be such a great connecting point for people. And I think that was the goal of Fermentation Club, because like you said, sauerkraut, kombucha, it's so easy. You need like 1 or 2 ingredients, and then you make this whole new product. And as a curious person, that seemed super interesting. I was like, everyone would be excited about this, I think.
Dr. Todd, does this make you just feel so happy inside?
I will say that Ambiana and Chloe made it very easy to be the advisor for the Fermentation Club.
Here's something I love about the Fermentation Club. They wear lab coats, or at least Ambiana and her club co-founders, Chloe Casperson and Stella Pirelli, did last week when we got together in the UVM Foods Lab to chat about the club and make sauerkraut with Dr. Todd. Let's take a look.
All you're going to do is cut this in thin slices. You can do that, right?
Oh, yeah.
Without cutting your finger.
Hoping I wouldn't be too distracting, I asked Chloe about the club's early days.
Yeah, I met Ambiana through my anatomy class, and she told me that she had scoby, and I was like, oh my gosh.
So she offered you scoby, and that was the beginning of a beautiful
Yeah, and then, yes, and we were like, we should make this into a club and do all the fun fermented things.
We weighed out a small portion of the sliced cabbage, enough for a mason jar of sauerkraut.
So we're going to do a 2% salt. So if we've got 400 grams, we're going to weigh out 8 grams of salt, okay? Put the salt in, spread it around, and then you're going to massage that in there.
Why do we need to massage the salt in, Todd?
It basically changes the osmotic pressure a little bit, and the fluids will come out of the cabbage. So that will include some of those sugars like the glucose and fructose, which is what will end up getting fermented. One of the reasons we do that is the organisms that we want to do this fermentation actually can survive in salt, whereas other organisms can't. So we're purposefully selecting for the organisms that will do that lactic acid fermentation. So typically we would do this and we would massage it, and then we'd wait about 15 minutes, we'd massage it again and go for at least an hour.
For sauerkraut, you don't add any liquid, correct?
Right, so when we end up packing it, we want it to stay submerged. We want it to be anaerobic, so it'll be under the fluid. So now we're going to put this into the jar, so pack it in there good and tight. You're going to put everything, including the brine, is going to go in there. So everything's going to go in, pack it in good and tight. So pack it right in there because we want this to be anaerobic, so we want it to be without oxygen, and that's the organisms that we want are both anaerobic and they survive in the presence of salt. So we're setting up two conditions that some organisms can't grow in, and in that way we're selecting for these ones.
And that's how you make sure that you don't get bad bacteria, because
Right.
the salt
The salt will prevent some, and the other is the anaerobic condition. So if you start seeing mold, you know you've got oxygen in there. That's pretty full. We did make some brine to top it off a little bit. So this is about a 2% brine. So we're going to add a little bit of brine to top this off so it's close to the top. And now we're going to put the cover on, but we're not going to tighten the cover. And that way, this is actually going to go through a gaseous stage, which is the original organisms. The leuconostoc is going to produce gas, but that will allow that out, and then we'll give that some time to ferment.
So if we tighten this all the way, would it explode?
Probably not enough pressure in there to build up to explode, but you definitely would, when you opened it, it would spritz you.
I had two last questions for Chloe and Stella.
How many members of the Fermentation Club are there now?
Well, we have over, I would say, 300 people on our email list. Oh, 400. Yeah, we got a lot of new members this last semester. So
Why do you think students like the Fermentation Club?
I think it's something that's like easy to do in a dorm, and also I feel like there's like an emergence of like kind of make your own things like fermentation and like sewing and everything like that.
Okay, Dr. Todd, okay, lab coats, appropriate because fermentation is a form of kitchen craft, but of course it's also science. We learned a little bit about lactofermentation in the video, but what can go wrong? We didn't talk about safety so much.
Sure, we didn't. So one of the big things that could go wrong is you could get mold. And
Okay.
mold is typically going to be a spoilage sort of situation where you probably didn't have it submerged. So mold
keeping it
can be
submerged important.
keeping it is going to be very important. So you keep that anaerobic condition. Not having the right salt concentration could be an issue because then you either pick for the wrong organisms or you don't prevent the wrong organisms from
Right.
growing.
We heard
And
that, we
then
want that 2%.
2%,
Okay.
and then possibly not making enough acid to have it preserved.
Oh, okay.
So those would be really your bigger issues that you, so
Is
really,
the acid, is the buildup of acid, does that have to do with the time of fermentation?
that has to do with the organisms that are in
The
there.
organisms themselves,
Yeah.
okay. All right, so how long can sauerkraut be left to ferment?
Sure, so this one here, this big one that you see here, and by the way, it's billions of bacteria, not
Billions,
millions.
oh, okay,
So it's
not millions,
billions.
billions of bacteria.
Something like this is going a little bit slower than the jar that we had.
Right.
So I would give this 3 or 4 weeks to ferment, and then it can go in your refrigerator. Now, obviously, that's probably not going to go in my refrigerator that size because I would not eat
You
that
do
all.
have to have a very big
But it can last a
refrigerator.
few months in the refrigerator
Okay,
too.
okay. And do you have to have this kind of specialized equipment?
Absolutely
I mean, we used a mason
not.
jar, right?
You can use a mason jar. You can actually buy little lids that come with them now that have a little slit in them that will allow the gas to get out, and then you can put your caps on. Or you can just put it in your mason jar, tighten it down, and then loosen it so it can burp a little bit. So the gas that gets built up, because that's why you see the airlock here, let the gas out.
Yeah.
So that it's basically burping it, for lack of a better term. So.
Ambiana, when you did pickles with the Fermentation Club, do you give that same kind of instruction?
Yes, we tell them that they should definitely make sure to burp it every so often, otherwise they risk explosion in their dorm room, which has happened.
Okay.
It's not fun.
And does that kind of thing happen when you're making kombucha too?
No, because at least when you're fermenting it, it's not covered. Like I put like a cheesecloth over my kombucha while it ferments. Once I bottle it, that can happen, but I usually put it in the fridge once I bottle it, so it's less of a risk.
Less of a risk. Okay, I think we should taste a little bit of this sauerkraut. So this is coming from the mason jar version that we made.
Yes.
And I want to take a fork. Let me do a little taste test here.
Got such a good texture.
It really does. Yeah,
Nice and
it
crunchy.
looks very nice and crunchy. It's not limp looking. Oh, that's
That's good.
delightful. Okay.
We need some bratwurst.
Yeah, exactly. I'm ready for a bratwurst. Absolutely delicious. And this is only after about a week of
This is a week.
fermentation.
Yeah, you
So
can
this is
taste
a
it.
week, 2% solution. I think I remember from the video about 400 grams of cabbage. A week of fermentation in a mason jar, keeping it submerged in brine the entire time. Okay,
Yep.
so pickling is a form of food preservation, and obviously this is the season for that. What are the most important safety practices that folks at home should know about when they're doing canning or preservation?
Sure. So there's a couple different things that go on. If you're doing pickling where you're using vinegar, it's important you know the correct concentration of the acetic acid. So if it says 5% acetic acid and you buy 4%, you're not going to get the pH developed that you want. So
Okay.
being careful of the vinegar is one of them.
Okay.
Another is if you're going to be canning, you should know the pH of the product that you have,
Okay.
because that's going to make a difference between whether you can hot water bath.
Is that something you just look up, or?
In a perfect world, it's something you would test.
Okay.
So something like litmus, the pH paper, or something like that you could
Okay,
test.
so yes, home viewers, do you have your litmus paper?
In a worst case scenario, you can always go to canning. That's good.
Okay.
And if you have canning, make sure that you have checked to make sure that your gauge is working correctly.
Okay.
And I would say, if anything, over process rather than under. The quality will suffer a little bit, but the safety will be there.
Okay, so when in doubt, go ahead and be sure you're working for temperature, like temperature,
Exactly.
making sure the temperature is high enough.
Yep.
Okay, all right.
Yep.
So, Ambiana, last word. What is your favorite pickle?
Oh, well, this is a strange answer, but last year I made mango pickles.
Oh, no, that doesn't sound strange to me at all.
Because
It
if you
sounds
put
delicious.
salt in anything you put in that
Yeah.
anaerobic environment, it ferments. So I had some mango pickles, and they weren't that great, but I liked the vision.
Did you add any spices?
I
or
did a little cayenne, actually. So
a
they
little
were spicy. mango
cayenne.
pickles.
I'm thinking also some mustard seeds or something
Oh.
like that could also have been nice. Well, the mango pickle, that sounds like Indian cuisine to me.
Yes.
So then I start thinking of like all the flavor profile of the Indian spices.
Should've
Okay,
gotten
there's
in
your
there.
there's your next opportunity. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Well, I have to say thank you both so much for
Well, thank
joining
you
me
for
today,
having us.
and
Thanks,
thank you
Amy.
to Dr. Todd for all of the work on this fantastic sauerkraut. About how much longer until a size like this is going to be
I'm going to
done?
leave it a couple more weeks.
Couple more weeks,
Yeah,
and then we're going to have another sauerkraut tasting
you're
session
You're going to be
together.
eating well.
I'm going to be eating well, and the probiotics will do me well.
Yes, the probiotics. Don't ever forget, probiotics are important. All right, well, good luck, everyone, with your canning. And as always, thank you, Vermont, for learning and exploring with me today. And thanks to the team that makes Across the Fence possible. I'm Amy Finley. This is Across the Fence. Come back and let's learn and explore again tomorrow.